Oh. Well, hi, Chanelle.
Hello.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
That's good. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Spotlight. Today we have a special guest. This is my sister. She came all the way down from a city. I don't know, disclosure we're not saying.
Come from a small town down south.
Down south.
That's why I'm here.
Kind of the hick, the back
Practically
roads.
a drifter.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of drifters, we're talking about the biggest drifter of all, Mr. Rob Zombie, because you and I have a wonderful connection with Rob Zombie in the fact that I think back when we were in high school and everything like that, and well, growing up together, I'd say that Rob Zombie was the only thing that was bonding us together.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Because I hated you.
Typical sibling love.
Yeah,
yes.
It's sibling love. It was like, there was definitely a form of hate, but it was like, for sure, whenever the topic of Rob Zombie came up,
We just connected.
we connected. So on this episode of Spotlight. Oh, okay. It's just, that's weird. Okay.
If you do a clap sync, then you just sync it later.
Oh, yeah. So.
You just go and we'll figure it out. Yeah, now it's good again.
Is it just like really quiet or something? Like, is it quiet when I'm talking?
Now, look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Now
What the f? Okay, and then Chanelle's Chanelle talking.
Do you want me to clap as well?
Yeah, no, she's
Yeah,
now too.
yeah.
No, the clap is just for editing purposes.
Okay.
So,
I think it's his aux cord.
but yeah, as I was saying, so basically you and I put on our best hick outfits to go out and everything like that for his countdown extravaganza. So, and I would like to call this Rob Zombie's filmography countdown, or as I've coined it, House of 1,000 rankings. So
That is beautiful.
you.
That is beautiful.
So yeah, we're going to be going through his entire filmography, going from worst all the way to best. And we're going to be going off of your list to kind of guide us through. So you'll say what your number 9, 8, 7, 6 all the way to 1 is. And then when you say, I'll tell you where that movie is on my list, if we match up or not,
Yeah.
and then go from there. And then also probably mention what movie I had at that point, but we won't talk about it until we get to yours. So
You got it.
that's how we're going to do it. So without further ado, number 9, what is it?
All right, in my humble opinion, I am putting The Munsters.
Oh my
And dead last,
God.
which is appropriate considering it's like the vampire dead alive. I wasn't a huge fan personally. Maybe it's because I wasn't a huge fan of the TV show from back in the day. The acting was pretty funny, but it was kind of a slow burn in the beginning for me. It was a little funny in the middle, and then it just crashed and burned at the end. And yeah.
Wow.
I know.
You know where I have the monsters on my ranking?
Where?
Number 1.
Number 1. Complete opposites on the spectrum. Wow.
I'm f***ing with you. It's number 9,
Okay.
baby. Yeah, that movie's a pile of shit. Now, okay, here's the thing, though. I will say this. It was number 9, but it was... So we matched on this one. It's our least favorite, both together, of his filmography. But I'll say this. I actually, even though it's his least favorite, I actually still really like a lot of shit in it.
Well, and that's just it.
Because it's like when you see the trailer, I don't know if you saw the trailer when it first came out like 2 years ago, but the trailer was like, everyone was like, this looks f***ing bad, you know? And it was like, oh my God, you know? But like, as you can see, I bought the movie, but it was like, when I bought it and I watched it for the first time, I was like, pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed about 70% of it. That first like hour is really fun. I like it when it's in Transylvania. I like how silly everyone's performing.
What exactly do you want?
Is Herman Munster in there?
The way that I kind of put it is like when they're going around the town and everything like that, and they're having their dates, she goes and sees and Herman Monster, it like playing and stuff like that, his band and stuff. I was like, this just feels like if you were to go to Universal Studios during Halloween and tour like a haunted, like, I don't know, town. Like instead for a haunted house, it's like a haunted town. The cheesiness, the vibe, everything feels like a set. It all feels so cheap, but I loved it. Until, and I'll get to that in a minute, but basically, like, anyone doesn't know, the plot of The Monsters is, it's like a prequel to the show, but then it becomes the like matching with the show. And it's essentially about Sherry Moon's character plays, oh God, I can't even remember her name. Lucy. So Lucy, let's just say it's Lucy.
Starts with an L.
Yeah, let's just say it's Lucy. Lucy is the daughter to the Count. And basically she's looking for her true love. It's okay. Don't worry. This is a mess. She's looking for true love and everything like that. And she's going on dates. She goes with Nosferatu. I think it's like Count Olaf. That's like the name they give him because Nosferatu.
Well, and when he showed up, that's actually when I started to enjoy the movie because he's showing photos of his baby rats and it's kind of funny and stupid. And, you know, it's a first bad date.
Do you want to rub Pumpkin's nose?
Oh, I'm good.
And it's a movie that's like designed for children.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's really over the top, really silly. But that stuff's kind of charming and fun. He like goes outside his club and starts dancing like a buffoon. I like that delivery of Sherry Moon Zombie where she's like, he like stops and she's like, I'm gonna go. Like, you know, it's just like, I was like, this is silly. I like it.
I'm gonna go.
Well, it's relatable too, which kind of like to everyone.
You're like, this is so cringe. I can't deal with it anymore. But yeah, basically she ends up seeing the creation of Herman Munster, which is like Frankenstein's monster essentially, but technically would be Dr. Wolfgang. So Wolfgang's monster. I don't know copyrights, but Frankenstein is in public domain, so I don't know. But anyway, basically like she falls in love with him, love at first sight. I like all those shots they do where it's like the heart spinning around in the back. Those like reactions, they're so fucking stupid.
Well, I love it when she's always just like every time she sees
her like over dramatic performance and like he's like, oh my God, like I'm so in love with you. Like I found it really charming when they're at that club and he's playing his band and stuff like that. And then she goes and sees him, like a groupie going to go see the singer. And she's like, do you want to have like dinner tomorrow? And he's like, oh, let me check my schedule, close the door. And he's like, oh my fucking God.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah, I happen to have a opening.
Comes out like bigger like notebooks and he's just like and it's like he's like, yeah, I think I can make it there, and he's just like love and like that stuff's all really charming and fun. And you have the Count who's like desperately trying to make sure that they can't be together, but it's failing. And the way that I go with this is that Rob Zombie has always loved the Monsters. I mean, like Dragula is a reference to the Monsters, and that's like what shot him into fame from his Hellbilly album, right? Mm-hmm. And you know, like clips of the Monsters playing through all of his movies, like House of a Thousand Corpses and shit like that. And you just kind of sit there and you're like, I'm actually really happy that he was the one that took on this, because like no one else, like I can't even like I think about what like Hollywood would want the Monsters movie to be, and it's like it's more like it would be like Bewitched. You remember the Bewitched movie? It'd be like, okay, it's about the making of the show, but it's also real. You know what I mean? And it's like, what? Like, so I wouldn't have liked that. I like that he goes back and makes it like this, I'm pretty sure like a prequel-esque thing where it's like them falling in love before they move to California. Because the Monsters was, I think, just a way to combat the Addams Family. It was just like, it was Universal saying like, what do we do? And then they did that, right? So, and I'm okay with his direction on it. If you're like a kid, if you're into those movies, you're gonna have a fun time. But like the acting is super cheesy, so right off the bat it can turn people off. And then you will, and I guarantee it, even to somebody that actually was like okay with this film, about the 40-minute mark, when they get to Paris and then they lose the house and like that, that's when the movie is like, sorry, Rob, if you're ever watching this, that movie falls apart. It's like you all of a sudden abandon the prequel elements of it and try to get them to California, and it feels rushed and weird and sloppy. And it reminds me a lot of the second half of Halloween, where it's like, now I can't do my own thing. I have to do the remake of Halloween. Yeah. And it's just like, oh no, like what the I do like that Elvira shows up in it, like Vanessa Kirby or whatever the her name is. I'm happy that like she shows up, or Cassandra, I can't remember, Elvira, whatever your name is, here, put it up. But like when she shows up, I'm like, oh cool, she's in it. She's in it for like 2 seconds, and I'm like, oh, you know. Like,
well, the way I described it to my husband actually was just like, you know what, this is a great introduction to like your basic like horror movie. It's like, it's funny, you bring the kids, maybe you got a girlfriend or a boyfriend that's not too into this kind of stuff, and it's a great introduction. It's got a good story.
It's got a fun story.
Yeah, and it's got a good background because it was a TV show before. Yeah. The cinematography is great. Like, it's got that whole Rob Zombie with the flashing lights. And
like I said, the best way to say it is like everything's a set, but it's so obviously trying to be that way. It's really charming. I love Dr. Wolfgang's set. Like, Richard Brake is really fun as Dr. Wolfgang, and he shows up and he's grabbing parts and shit like that with the fat guy from Lost randomly.
Okay, I had to look that up because as soon as I saw him, I was just like, no fucking way.
Yeah, he shows up as his servant, which in my notes, which I forgot to bring, of course, in my notes, it said like, oh, fat guy from Lost plays Igor. And then the Count's stewardess is named Igor. And I'm like, well, then who the fuck is that?
Right, it threw me right off, but I love how he becomes like, you know, the manager and everything to Herman later on.
That was the one thing. I love the costume design in that one. He's like I love that set of like him in his like, I don't know, green room with him. And he's talking about like, you're going to be the biggest star ever. He's like, you. Like, you know, he's like wearing a golden suit. Everything is so 70s. And I mean, as Rob Zombie would demand, I'm assuming. But like that stuff is really fun. And I like that there's a funny moment with the Count that I like. He takes out his big book of spells to try and break them up. And he's just like, it's like spells that you may have been shy to look up at to or something like that.
Everything you ever wanted to know about magic spells, but were afraid to ask.
So like, yeah, I don't have too much to say to it other than like the acting is like, it's all intentional is the thing. It's not like he wasn't aware that what he was making.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's just niche, you know.
I'm not a fan. Like, will I watch it again? Probably not.
See, that I think that's where we differ because like you saying you don't want to watch it again, even I was just like, don't rent it. I'll give you my Crave subscription, go watch because I guarantee you won't like it. Yeah. But like for me, it's like I could watch, like just watching it, I had such a smile on my face from the first like 40 to an hour that I was like, I actually will probably pop this in on every Halloween just to watch that first bit because I love those Universal attractions, those haunted house things where they're that fun. Like when they were in, like I keep going back to it, but when Sherry Moon Zombie goes into the into that club and watches him play, I was like, I wish that existed. I wish that I could like around Halloween go to a club like that and just like sit down and it was that fun environment and everything was spooky. You're getting cauldrons to drink in and shit like that. That's such a fun time. And
you just gotta find a back alley door and walk in and you're gonna find that.
Yeah, or just do a lot of drugs and you maybe I'll create it. Yeah. So it's just like as many shrooms as you can go. It's like Halloween tradition. Hi, I'd like to order a pizza of mushrooms, extra crispy. And then I'm just tripping out myself, crying that I don't live in a world like the monsters. Yeah, but ultimately, number 9, I think, is a really fitting place. I can't see most people thinking that this is higher up on his list.
No, and it's a shame too, because it's his most recent movie, and it just, for me, it felt like a fail. Yeah.
I think that he succeeded in his vision, but I think if you're looking at it on a producer, on like a selling point, I don't know why Universal ever greenlit this to begin with. No. And this movie was like shrouded in confusion of like what the budget was, because when this first was coming out, people thought this was a $30 million movie, which then Rob Zombie came out and said, if you took the budget of Halloween 2 all the way down to 3 from Hell and combine them together, it still wouldn't be 30 million. So like, and it's true. It's like, I don't know where people got that number from.
And it looks cheap when you're watching
I would be shocked if it was more than 3 million. I understand that it was all, you can tell it's all shot on the Universal backlot because it's a Universal Studio movie. But like, to me, when I was watching it, I was just like, I like that everything feels like a set because that's really faithful to the show. This is a fan's monsters movie.
Yeah.
Like if you're a fan, you'll like this. I think it falls off and it becomes really at the end. I just like wasn't into it. I like that animated driving montage sequence at the end though, where they're in the car and then like it's just all animated and crazy. And I was like, this is so stupid. I love it.
Yeah.
It's like they had Beverly Hillbillies. But like that was really fun. But like I said, it's like I can't like totally like I can defend it as much as that. I cannot defend the third act. I think it's really bad. But I do find a lot of enjoyment in it. He's trying to kind of go and do like a bit of a Tim Burton thing, contrasting the dark with the light, but that's just the monsters in general.
Well, and that's why like I am happy that Rob Zombie did this film and not someone like Tim Burton. 'Cause
Yeah.
I feel like Tim Burton would have taken it to this whole other level, and it would have been even worse.
He would have wanted like $100 million. It would have been
Yeah.
like bombastic and exploding out, and it would have been way too much. I like the idea that this is a very low budget
It
studio
needs the
movie.
simplicity to
Yeah.
really connect to the original series.
I love Dr. Wolfgang's laboratory set. That's probably one of my favorite sets. It's just like the lights spinning around. Richard Brake is great. You know, like it's just everyone's chewing the scenery in a very appropriate way. The only person who fails for me is well, he doesn't fail, but he's not as good as Herman Monster, the guy that's the actor's like Philip Jeff Daniels or something like that, whatever his name is. He's like a regular. He was in like Lords of Salem and stuff like that as well. And I was just like, you're trying to go up against, you know, the old man from Pet Sematary, and you can't beat that voice, you can't beat that look. It's really difficult. But I think like everybody did an acceptable job, and like I don't think it's gonna hurt anyone's career. It's just like, well, the direction was go as cheesy as possible, and it's very intentional. So
You know, for me, I feel like this was just like a more close to home kind of make for him, because he probably, like, you can even see in some of his other movies, they have the Munsters original series playing in the background and stuff like that. So in that sense, like, good for you, sticking to your roots. You wanted to do this, but it fell short, unfortunately, out of the rest of your films.
even if you watch his the archived footage of MTV Cribs, he has the classic Monsters Go Home poster, which was the movie. So like, yeah, like I said, I'm really happy you got this. I think he said that he was exhausted making this movie. Makes sense. I can only assume Universal was like, what in the are you doing? I hope he makes more. And as I said, I was like, he's got a good one coming. Like, I think like he only wants to focus on music right now, which I'm happy about, because this last album was amazing. But like, I can feel he's got one more really good movie in him. But that's the Monsters. So moving on.
Snap to it. Chop, chop.
I don't know where this is going to stand with you,
Yeah. Okay. Let's go.
but in number 8, in 8th place, I guess you can say, I have chosen Halloween 2.
Okay. Yeah. This is gonna be a huge contrast. No bullshit. But like.
You know, there's so many aspects of this movie that I did actually enjoy. Like, I like that you can really see the trauma in Laurie and Annie, and like where they are now in the future after a year after Michael has apparently died or gone missing, as they show in the beginning. Which brings me to the beginning is actually like one of my favorite parts. You know, she's having the dream, Michael's back, they're in the hospital. Like, if they had just gone off from there, like,
I was gonna say, I was like, before I let you go any further, I'll tell you my ranking for Halloween 2 is number 3.
Really?
It's high. It is high on my list, and my number 8 is actually 3 from Hell. But we'll go to that later.
To that, yeah.
But so you like, the thing is like, right off the bat, we both like that. Not just do I like that hospital sequence.
Yeah.
I think we have to stop and give Mr. Rob Zombie a round of applause for that sequence. So let's come on.
Okay, yeah, fair enough.
You fucking did it!
When you start with a bang, felt like it went downhill from there.
I can understand that. The dream that hospital sequence is probably maybe only second to in the first Halloween. That's like some of the best Michael's ever done. But the reason why I like this movie is because when it comes to Halloween, this is where it's going to get a little confusing, because lo and behold, there are 2 versions of this movie. We have the theatrical version, which is the one you saw, because you said it was 1 year.
Yeah.
So the director's cut is 2 years. When you watch the theatrical, you can tell immediately that this movie has nothing going for it. It's like, what the fuck is this movie? It feels like scenes happening. Loomis is so disconnected.
Yeah.
And Laurie's just kind of like, she's sort of just like kind of going through the steps of recovering, and she's like, seems like she's doing a good job at it, and then Michael gets thrown in and everything goes to right.
Yeah.
The director's cut, the biggest change is that it removes integral moments with her character that show that she is not doing well. She is downward spiral, like she's going down.
I don't remember much. It's a hospital one. Haven't had one of those in a while. Guess I know what I'll be yakking about in therapy today.
One day at a time, babe.
One day at a time. One day at a time. One fucking day at a time. You know what? If I hear that fucking phrase one more fucking time, I mean, she just fucking sits there in her fucking leather chair and judges me like she's fucking God.
It's her job, Lori. My God. What am I supposed to say? Boo fucking who for you?
See? You don't fucking care.
Right. I don't fucking care.
So it's really funny when you talk about the first one, the theatrical cut is the one that you should watch. The unrated director's cut's a little too messy for me. But when it comes to Halloween 2 or H2, it's the unrated cut you want to watch. And we'll go into a little bit of like the differences here, because if I was to say the theatrical cut was the one that I was ranking, it would be low as well because it's almost nonsensical.
Yeah.
But when you talk about the director's cut, it becomes so much more, because it becomes this wonderful take on the horrors of PTSD and like how this one, like you were saying, recover from this and how it goes completely wrong.
Yeah.
And then what ends up happening as well is that Rob Zombie introduces this like spiritual element with him, with the white horse.
I didn't mind the spiritual aspect of it because like if you do have PTSD, like there's so many different like side effects, I guess you can say.
Yeah,
where like
hallucinations.
Exactly, right? And like she is the daughter and the
Yeah.
sister, and like she has that like
Yeah.
connection to the family, and then just to process all that, like I like how they added that in there, and it's not like, oh, la-di-da-di-da, I'm fine or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like for me, like, and this is where the sequels for all the Halloweens kind of just fall off the edge for me, because it's overdone. It's too much. It's like, we get it. He's alive. Although I do love that scene in the farm when he gets out of the back of the ambulance and then he starts killing the farmers and shit.
Yeah, you know, that's a funny one, because like that's at the beginning of the movie where he's like getting driven away, right? And you have Richard Brake again in his most despicable role to date. Like,
I heard a story about a couple of meat wagon boys f***ing corpses over in Essex. I ain't never had the urge till tonight.
I heard some boys are fucking corpses down
Well,
in the.
you got Unser from Sons of Anarchy driving the car, and it's just like,
and it's like, my God! And then they just smash a cow.
Cow! Cow!
And that's a funny story. Apparently, like Rob Zombie said that like the special effects guy they originally had rigged this cow, but it had like no weight to it, so they would do that scene over and over and over again, and they would smash a cow, and the cow would just go flying in the air. And I was like, that sounds hilarious.
Help me!
But yeah, they smash it. So many people have issues with that. They're like, oh, a cow, how absurd. But apparently it was based on a real event that happened to a friend of Rob Zombie's. And I'm just like, yeah, because that leads to Richard Breaker forgetting any word in the human like English language other than it holds on him too long for that. It's like, my God. But then he gets his head sliced off in the most violent way. Like,
beautiful.
It's beautiful. And like, yeah, it's like, I do like that stuff. I like that at the beginning he shows clips of Laurie after the math, and it's like fucking disgusting. It's like they got classical music playing while they're like stitching her back up, and it's like, oh my God.
Like for me, the hospital scenes, anything that shows like a surgery happening, you can see the extensive damage that was done from Michael attacking Laurie afterwards.
Shows the brutality of it.
Exactly. And it's just like, for me, it's so interesting, and it's mind-blowing, and it really puts into perspective like how hard she fought to stay alive. And I love that storyline for all the Halloween
I like
movies.
that stuff too. Like I said, the whole start of that movie is really strong. And yeah, I do like that Danielle Harris is still alive, her friend Annie, and she's like crying. She feels this like horrible like regret for her and everything in the hospital. One question I have for you. So Octavia Spencer shows up in the hospital, and she's having some back and forth dialogue with the lead actress from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the original one.
Yeah.
And that lady calls her Octavia.
Octavia, it's a pleasure.
And I'm like, is that a f*** up? Or did they just call her Octavia? But then over the intercom, when she's trying to help Laurie back to her room, it says Nurse Daniels.
Nurse Daniels, please report to emergency room A.
Now, you knowing things about nurses, is it like nurse is used as like Mr. or Mrs. and then your last name, or would they say Nurse Chanelle, or would they say Nurse MR.OZ?
No, you go by the last name, because chances are you're going to have like 10 Taylors on a unit, but you might only have one Taylor Jones.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So Okay, so maybe they just called her Octavia Daniels. That's like the first moment we see a true Michael Myers brutality stabbing. Yeah. Which that's my favorite stabbings in like ever in movie because they're fucking wildly brutal. And you get those inserts of her and she's like shaking and freaking out. She's screaming. I think Octavia Spencer was just outstanding. That's such a strong, like, she has her slit face and she's like, whoa, and then she falls on the ground.
She's in shock at first, and then it's just, and it really, because that's kind of how it goes when you are like in shock. You're like kind of,
oh yeah, you're like disconnected and you don't know.
Exactly, and then all of a sudden it just hits you, and it's just like,
I also love the look where she's like on the ground. You can see like she's trying to be as still as possible. Maybe you won't see me, but it's like, bitch, you're gonna get stabbed 500 times, and it's violent as hell. Just to kind of go forward, like from the dream sequence and everything, even though I think it was done so well, it's like, with the theatrical cuts 1 year later, director's cuts 2 years later. It's been longer time gap. Laurie is going in a downward spiral and everything's going to. First thing that I want to mention about it, and by first I mean the 40th thing because we've already talked so much about it, but it's like, I love that farm town look. I think they're still in Haddonfield, but it's like this removed from the suburbs of Haddonfield and more in like the rural areas of it. Yeah. You have like the sheriff played by Brad Dourif taking care of his daughter Annie, and he's become protector of Laurie after like her parents died and everything. And I just love the idea that it's like, I have to protect these both people. We're going through our own shit and everything like that. But like Laurie is on this downward spiral, and it's all about like her having these issues and dealing with them, and she just fucking can't. And then to make everything worse in a very horror type movie way, she's having these like psychic connections to Michael, and like she's tripping out and freaking out. I can't remember if this is in the theatrical cut or not, but she has this like hallucination where she is actually dressed up as Michael, as like 10-year-old boy in a clown suit, and then she goes and kills Annie like she did. Like Michael did to his
the stepfather.
The stepfather, or William Forsythe's character. And I was like, I love that. But I think in the theatrical, it's seen as I think it's actually seen more as like a dream sequence. Yeah. Where, and she wakes up and she's like, I'm losing my mind, fucking toy, but in the actual director's cut, no, it's like she's having like a seizure. It's real.
Well, she's standing in the bathroom and it goes back to that. And,
and that's the thing is like in the director's cut, it's like she's in the bathroom having the seizure, but then instead for it cutting as a dream sequence where she wakes up, it's like, no, that happened. And then it goes to a deleted scene with Margaret Kidder, her psychiatrist, where she like is not doing well and like freaking out, and it's like this amazing acting moment with her, and it's not in the theatrical cut, so it's a shame that we can't cross with that.
Breathing exercises? Yes, it helps. Breathing exercises aren't gonna cut it. Like, I can't deal with this. I'm not strong enough, and I'm tired of pretending that I am.
And speaking of the psychiatrist, the one thing I wanted to mention is like Loomis feels so disconnected from this movie. He's like off doing his own greedy thing and stuff like that, which I'm okay with him being more of an asshole, like and greedy in that way. But what a missed opportunity to make Loomis the psychiatrist to Laurie, like as if it was like his type of redemption. I wasn't able to help Michael, so I'm gonna help his sister, and just is failing. You know what I mean? And then you could still have the sheriff like not like him, and he kind of blames him, and then in the end he writes the book that reveals all this shit, and it's like a violation of the of like his help and everything like that to her, and then that leads Laurie to freak out and stuff. And I was just like, I would have liked that more if he went down that path. Rob didn't. He put him in his own like thing, and that's my problem. Is like, as funny as some of those scenes are, where he's just like, I'm not going in there unless I get a latte with sizzling hot milk.
You go get me a cup of PG Tips with a splash of milk, and I want it sizzling hot.
And he's such a baby, and it's just like that stuff's funny, but it's so it is pretty jarring when you're going from like rural Haddonfield to like the like cities, states, and like rich fancy hotels, and I'm like, what the f-? This is such a weird juxtaposition. Yeah.
And as you like get into like the middle of the film, I love how it's the sexy, like, Rob Zombie kind of feel. You got them going to that awesome party, like,
I love
that you wish was actually like a real thing.
Yeah, they're like showcasing the original silent like Fan of the Opera. Yeah. I love that band that they have. Their name is like something like the Smiths and Coffin Smith or something like that. It was like this real band that he just wanted to promote with them and stuff. And I love like that moment where Laurie's like, it kind of cuts to her friend in the van, and then she like gets strangled by Michael Myers.
Harley or something like that.
And then who's dressed up like Frankenhooker or whatever the fuck from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
There you go.
Tim Curry. And then like, yeah, she gets murdered and then it cuts back. And I like that song they singing where it's not really singing. It's like talking, but he's like, he cut his heads off and everything. When you get the music playing, it's so atmospheric. Yeah. I love that. It's like systematically cut their heads off one by one.
And the demons on horseback and systematically cut their heads off one by one.
You know, I love that stuff. And she's like tripping out. Once again, in the theatrical, it's like so short, but in the unrated one, it's played out a little longer and she's like really not doing well. This is after she finds out that like she's Michael's sister. She's reading the book. She had like that, you know, that was one thing I mentioned in my notes. I was just like, I love the houses in this movie, but I would never want to live in them. I would want to film in them because they have that like Jordan Youngama-esque kind of house feel. You know, it's like a farmhouse. And that was one thing I was wondering, because you and I both like those, like we said, I wish that party was real. That's an awesome party.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do you think we like those farm parties because we have that connection with like our friend Jordan, and going there always felt like an event to me?
No, it's because we grew up in a city in the country kind of vibe.
Maybe,
so like we were the kids that partied in the bushes.
Yeah, we did do that. Even though like the MR.OZ house was the party house, we always got invited to those wild like farmhouse parties that were pretty crazy.
And like the ones on like the reserve where you would get a live band and stuff, and you could do whatever you want, pitch a tent.
Like if I had money, I'd be hosting parties like that one at Halloween all the time.
But you see where I'm getting to is why this movie is such low rankings, because all we're talking about is just like these little minuscule parts of the film. It wasn't like the big picture. Like it was boring.
That's the thing. It's just like, to me, I didn't find it boring because it's like this descent into madness, basically. I like the idea of like Laurie just failing at kind of getting back into society. That's the heart of it. But the problem is in the theatrical version, you won't feel that, because I agree with you, in the theatrical version, you don't get that because it's just like what's happening. It's just scenes going on. But when it comes down to that unrated director's cut, you feel this like excessive empathy for Laurie. You're like, it's such a, she's very unlikable, but you feel so bad for her because you're like, this sucks. Like I
didn't find her unlikable.
Miserable.
Like I really appreciated her character development, like showing like the aftermath of it and all that fun stuff. The white horse with Sherry Moon and everything.
I'm totally fine with the white horse. Everyone hates it. I like it.
I didn't mind that part that much. Yeah. It's just like the whole storyline, it was very much similar to the first movie, where it's like you could have gone a little bit, you could have been a bit more creative with it, in my opinion. And you could have taken it to this whole other level, because like all the, especially like Halloween 4, for example, it's like, what the was that movie?
Oh my God. Yeah.
But like, you know, and like that's the thing with the remakes of the Halloween. I feel like you peak so high with the first one and then it goes down.
Well, that's the thing. They just tried to do the same thing over and over and over again. That's why when that's why when you have them do something so drastically weird and different like H2 and Halloween Ends, I always love it. I like the idea of this like passing of evil that Halloween Ends did, and it's present in here as well. It's like, I mean, all the way to the end, like in the theatrical, she comes out with the mask on, and then in the underage director's cut, she actually she stumbles out of the shack and then tries to kill Loomis and then gets murdered herself. So like that's the difference as well in the endings, is like she lives and then she's in the insane asylum, but what happens in the end of the director's cut is that she actually dies, and then her last look is her going down that like surreal like thing,
joining her family.
Yeah, exactly. That's her last,
and that's a better ending.
It is. It's much better.
ending.
I love elements of both of them, but I think ultimately that unrated director's cut ending is much better. I like that there's so much noise going on, that shack. Stop!
Closes the book on the story.
It's over.
Yeah.
And of course, as a franchise, you're like, no, you know, but like him coming back was always so weird as well. He never wanted to come back. This is the weirdest contract of all time, like with the Weinstein Company, with Dimension Films, where it's like he signed on to do Halloween, three films, right? 3 picture contract. Then he had such difficulty with Halloween and the interference with the crazy ass Weinsteins that he was like, I'm not coming back. And like they were like, hey, this was successful, come back. And he's like, no, I'm not doing the next one. But then he felt like, oh, people are gonna up my character, so maybe I'll come back. But really it was like a mixture of two things. I'll come back so that I can end it, but also I'm coming back, we're renegotiating the contract, I'm not doing your third movie, I'm leaving fuck off. You know what I mean?
Which was a good decision because the third movie just would have been
a
nail in the coffin.
Would have made no sense. I mean, they were trying to do a third one called like Halloween 3D, and everyone's like, what's it going to be like, Laurie? And I'm like, no, they would have just completely retconned and done something crazy, stupid. But I like how this it's not a slasher film. It's like a psychological horror drama. It's like watching the descent of a person. And it's just like, as they go from the first one, you see this happy girl in high school, and then all the way down to her ultimate end, just from her brother, like her family. She couldn't escape her family even when she did, you know, and I really liked that. And yeah, we were talking a lot about like little things in the movie, but that's like the flavor of it. That's like the style of it, like really shining for me. And one thing I want to mention is that the actress who plays Laurie, her name's like Scout Taylor, I think. And her look is like, the way I worded it is like, she walked in Halloween 2 so Sherry Moon Zombie could run in Lords of Salem, because it really feels like they just took that and said, okay, now Sherry, let's take it to 11, you know? Yeah. And yeah, I have Halloween. I have H2 at number 3 for me. You have it at number 8. And honestly, it's kind of getting that vibe. Like when it first came out, everybody hated it. Yeah. Now there's like people that are saying it's this masterpiece. I won't say it's a masterpiece. It still has a lot of issues. Yeah. But I will say that it is the most, like when it comes down to his list, it's not number 1 for me, but I would say it's probably the one out of all of his movies I watched the most. It's probably the one I enjoy watching the most. I like the feel of it. I like the story of it. I think the acting is really great. Like in the theatrical cut, when Brad Dourif sees Annie dead, which by the way, I really like that scene. I like that it's like she closes the door and then it's just like Michael there and stuff, and then you don't see it. You just hear like her screams and everything. She has a really good moment where she says like ow a bunch of times in a very realistic way. Feels like very real. It's like somebody getting stabbed wouldn't be like just screaming. They would be like, ow, like, off.
She's slowly giving up, right?
Yeah. And then then that pool of blood that you see, it's like, that's so good. And Scout's performance in that, when she's just like grasping onto her, like, please, like, don't leave. And she's just crying, and that sad piano starts playing.
Don't leave me, babe.
And then when Brad Dourif sees it, it's like the music sways over his performance. But in the unrated, he talks, like you see a bit of his performance, and it's just like, it's the same way where he's just like, God.
Oh no, Andy! Hey, God, no! God, please! Oh God, no! No!
It's almost like he can't comprehend words because he's so disheartened from it. He's failed as a father. He couldn't protect her. And it's just like, it's really sad. And they do a thing too. And Rob Zombie does this a lot, where it shows home video footage of Danielle Harris as a kid with her dog. Like if he's seeing, like he's reliving memories of her while he's staring at her fucking naked dead body and like mutilated body. And it's like really heartbreaking. It's like, I was watching it, I was like, damn, Rob. And Rob always wanted to like humanize his characters before he kills them. And I think he succeeded in the Halloween films. And I think he succeeded with 2 of the characters in Halloween 2, because her friends, when they die, they're just like there. They're there as like emotional support. I also love that like cafe she works at, and it's like that hippie manager where her friends like, the man, he's like, yeah, that man, you know, you know, but it's like almost like a vinyl coffee shop store. And once again, I was like, why don't these exist? I watched this movie before we'll move on from this, but I watched this movie called Christmas Bloody Christmas or something like that. Yeah. And it's about like this animatronic Santa Claus that starts murdering people in a small town. And it gave me the same vibes as like this movie. And I like that stuff. And that movie has a really wonderful love story at the beginning. Like first 40 minutes feels like a love story. And then a robotic Santa Claus shows up and just starts murdering everybody. And the titty bar kind of scene as well. I like that scene too, where Philip Jeff Daniels gets his fucking face just like smashed in.
And don't you love how he's dressed as Frankenstein for that too?
Oh yeah. That actor played the Count in The Monsters. Exactly. He's in every one of Rob Zombie's movies. I can't remember his name.
Easter eggs.
Yeah. I like that stuff. And that's like I like how they're exploiting the Myers thing as well. There's this theme of exploitation going on with it. Like they have Sherry there, and it's like
home of
the mother of Michael Myers, and you know he gets his arm smashed. That's a great scene too, because once again the deaths are just fucking savage in this movie, and I love the brutality of it. I love that. I do like how whenever he puts on his mask, because it happens so rarely in the movie, it's like an event. It's like he's still has to hide himself when he does these acts and everything. And I like that he's like convinced himself with the white horse that like the only way for his family to like be reunited is just to like murder. And even it gets like solidified.
United in death. Right?
Yeah, it gets solidified in the director's cut when like Cherry Muzambi's actually on the stage and everything like that in her white gown, and she's just like, you have to kill everybody so that we can be reunited. And it's just like, I love going into that psychological aspect of Michael Myers' mind, and then adding the little spiritual elements. I think is really good flavor, and it works for me. So I do really enjoy this. It's like everyone loves the first half of Halloween 1 more than Halloween 2 because Michael's origin story and what Rob gets to do. And this was like Rob got to do whatever he wanted, and people rejected so much. And it just falls in that category where I'm like, totally understandable. Like, I'm not saying that your points are like wrong or anything like that. It's your opinion and it makes sense. I get it. You know what I mean? Especially going off the theatrical version, because that theatrical version makes no sense. It's like, it is like just scenes and you're like, what is this movie, you know? But when you get to that unrated one, it really is this like sad, miserable, groggy movie that does not have a happy ending. Francois and I mentioned in our review for either Hellraiser or The Midnight Meat Train that horror movies should not end happy. They should have a miserable ending.
Yeah.
And I think that Halloween 2 is like a horror movie. It is just like, there is nothing in it that makes you smile at the end. It's very miserable. You're watching Michael murder people in the most fucking violent ways. And by the end of it, you're like, you know what? I want to take a shower. I just feel bad. And it's like, I
feel dirty.
Yeah, I feel dirty. It's like, pop on Halloween 2 and then put on the first 40 minutes of the monsters. You'll feel a bit better. You're like, oh, there's all my favorite people. They're all back. No one died. Everything's good.
I gotta say though, you won't change my mind on this. This one is a hard 8 for me. Second last.
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's 3 for me, but 8 for you. So I love that. It's wonderful that we can have both sides of the table on it. And I think that my opinion obviously voids yours. So
I mean, you know, in this
I win. Yeah, hold stature. I went to film school, so that means I know what I'm talking about.
I get it.
Right.
So you need like a monocle and a top hat too.
The stock market's doing well these days.
Tell me more.
Anyway,
yes.
That's Halloween 2.
Ow!
All right, moving on to 7th place.
7th place now.
3 from Hell.
Okay, so yeah, as I said, I had 3 from Hell at 8th, so you like it a bit more than I did.
A little bit more. The reason why I placed it above Halloween 2 for me in the 7th place is because the first half of that movie is pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. I love how they open up and it's right after the shootout. They're going through the court cases. It looks like a documentary and it feels, you get back to the Firefly family and you feel like you're there again with them.
Yeah.
And like for me, I love that trilogy. Like I was totally here for it.
Is fun.
And then you go to the prison scenes with Sherry Moon and Solitary and the cinematography and that.
Yeah.
It's all just epic.
Yeah.
Like I love it. Even Otis and his stuff, like you could tell he's a bit older, a bit more grumpy, all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not a bad man. I'm just another lost soul searching for forgiveness in this wicked, wicked world.
Who are you?
Payback's a bitch, my.
But as you keep going throughout the movie, it just slowly starts to feel like, okay, now we're in Mexico, and it's like they should have done it into 2 different parts, 2 separate movies, right?
So my number 7, just to go back a little bit, is the Haunted World of El Superbeasto, but we'll get to that. Oh shit! But 3 from Hell. The biggest reason why I don't like it is exactly that thing.
Yeah.
There's 2 things that happened with me in this movie, and it was it's not what I wanted it to be, so I have to look at it in the way of what I was presented with. So I'll get to that. But when it is what he presents, the question I always ask is like, bringing them back after that epic ending in The Devil's Rejects, is the story worth it? Is it a valid reason for them to survive such a ending? And my answer is no. And it's cool that Rob Zombie wanted to like come back with the Fireflies and tap into it, but I was just like, the first half when they're, well, like maybe not even half, the first like 20, 30 minutes when they're in prison and it's showing all that documentary-ass footage of them. And it's just like, somehow they're miraculously they survived, and then they're going to jail. They're calling them the 3 from hell now. And then it's like, you have that tagline where they're like, free the 3, free the 3, you know? And it's just like, I don't think they did anything wrong. There's no proof that they murdered 1,000 people, you know? Like, it's just like, it's fine, you know? Everything's good. And it's just like, yeah. And then you start seeing that's like, Sherry Moon, baby, is like losing her mind. She's getting loony in there, you know?
And she has gotten wacky.
You are a grouchy mother.
Just to talk more about Sherry in this film, like personally, I have a huge girl crush on Sherry Moon. I love her.
Yeah,
like I got
death.
nothing bad to say about her. And I know she's been in her character Baby has been in solitary confinement for like, what is it, 10 years?
I think it's 10 years. It's been a while.
And like, yeah, obviously, like, you're gonna lose your fucking mind, even though this character was already like pretty crazy, as you can see in the first two movies.
The prison guard that's looking after you is like the psychotic Dee Wallace character.
Yeah.
Like, she's a fucking psychopath.
She killed that role. Like,
Dee Wallace is
amazing.
amazing.
Was an excellent cameo to that film.
Yeah.
I heard you kept your mouth shut. That's good. I trained you well.
We'll talk more about Dee Wallace because she shows up a lot in his filmography.
Yeah,
so.
But like Sherry, her over-the-top acting, obviously, like I see what they were going for. It was a little much for me, you know, but at the same time, like I understood it.
Yeah.
It was there. I still love her character and everything like that. But like Baby losing her mind and that whole aspect, the character seems so different to me compared to like the first two films.
And I think that's the reason why, like, for me, when it's like bringing them back to do something different once again, like kind of going back to H2, I do like that. That's my favorite stuff in the movie is everything with Sherry, because it's like, I like that she's losing her mind. I like that they're trying to center it more around her this time.
Yeah.
And I was just like, this is really interesting. But then, like you said, it's like the moment that they do finally escape and they get the idea of going to Mexico from Richard Brake's character.
Mexico.
That's not a bad idea. No one's looking for us there.
No, they ain't.
Yeah, but none of us speak Mexican. None of us speak Mexican. None of us speak Mexican. None of us speak Mexican.
It's just like, that's out the window. It's just like, nope, you know, like she's totally normal now. I mean, it's just normal psychotic Baby, basically. And I was just like, oh, like I love that scene in the prison. Maybe, I wonder if you do, where she's like in solitary confinement and then she looks through that vent and then she's at like dancing cat ballerina or something like that. I was just like, this is cool. It reminds me of the dream sequences in H2. And I was like, I do like this. And I was like, there's that loony like element. And she's like questioning Dee Wallace's sexuality as well and cross-examining her. And Dee Wallace is just like, oh, you know, I was just like, I really like that. But the whole movie, and this is my issue with it, is that I really wish that the whole thing took place in prison. I wish it was a prison movie, because it would have been such a wonderful thing for this trilogy. First movie is like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Then the second movie is like this road trip from hell. And the third movie, they're in prison. It's like a grindhouse prison film.
It would have been less busy, and it would have been able to really focus on like what was going on and then end with their escape. And then if you felt up to it, you could have done another movie of them.
Well, then they could go to Mexico. That would be the fourth movie if you wanted to bring them back, you know? And I agree with you. It's like, and you could still have like Jeff Phillip Daniels' his character as the crazy warden.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think his performance doesn't work for me. I think he comes off way too sinister and doesn't show enough brutality to kind of like, I don't know, enforce it, like for it to be wanted. It's just like, he's just like, yeah, I never thought these guys, he's like, they're in my house now.
I don't find them a threat, no threat at all.
And I'm like, man, how amazing would this have been if it was like, you have Otis going into this prison and then it is him and the warden having this like powerhouse trip, like trying to assert dominance together, kind of like how Sid Haig and him are trying to assert who's dominant in the family together a little bit in Devil's Rejects, but it's like that. And you have like a Tale of Two Cities kind of deal where it's like Otis is like initiating riots and then the cops are becoming way more brutal to them. And then once again, going down those really interesting things that Devil Reject did, it's like you're watching and you're like, can I feel sympathy for this fucking crazy man? And then you can cut to the stuff going off Sherry Moon, and then it all can lead to, and this is what I think would be so crazy, a courtroom scene where they actually get out and then they go immediately to his house and murder like 8 people. That would have been, and then the ending is like that them killing all those people, running away, and then now they're out and they're loose again. So we had a whole movie establishing how they could have gotten out of prison. Because I think the way that he gets Baby out of prison is fucking stupid. Like, it feels so dead. He's like doing coke and he's like, get Baby in here, and he's just like, put this on, and then D. Wallace is like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, oh, you know, like, it's so dumb. Like, it's just like, oh my god, I couldn't stand it. It's so bad. And then everything in that house too, it's like the only thing I like is when Clint Howard shows up as the clown and then pisses himself, and then like they're like make us laugh, clown, and then like Otis is just like, it's like so embarrassing. He's like freaking out, and Otis like, oh my god, and he comes up and puts a gun up him, and he pees in pants, and he starts laughing. He's like, he got me. And then he just shoots him anyway. He's like, I fucking hate clowns. I was like, that's a great moment, you know? And I do, like, there's, like, Otis is not front and center with his, like, amazing rants anymore.
Well, the preacher rants, right?
Yeah, I love those rants. And I was just like, Bill Moseley could have chewed up a court easy. And I would have thought that Rob
that's where the prison, like, if they just kept it, you could have really, like, brought out that aspect of the character Otis and that.
There is
But I do love the dynamic between him and his cousin and the bantering, because it's like, they're old men now, and it's like they're sitting on the front porch like, ah, f*** you, f*** them, blah, blah, blah.
Let's talk about Richard Breaker for just a second here. So Sid Haig was very old when this movie came out. It's a miracle we even got that great little scene with him. I think he gave it his all, and then he died like a minute after, probably. He died on set.
I want a moment of silence for a true hero.
Yeah, seriously. Sid Haig.
We miss you.
I love f***ing clowns. When you have Richard Breaker coming, I was like, this is a really welcomed moment. Like, I am happy that Richard Breaker definitely established himself to be like a Rob Zombie regular with 31, which we'll get to later. And I really do enjoy that, like, they did put him in there. But once again, I kind of just wish that it was Otis in prison meeting another grungy inmate. Like I was telling you yesterday off camera.
No, you got to keep it in the family. That's the whole aspect of these characters.
And that's the thing. It's just like, so you have Baby and, you know, Bill Moseley trying to get back together from each other while Sid Haig has died. They hear the news Sid Haig has passed and everything, and they're like, I got to see Baby. Like this. So how do I get out of this scenario, right? And Bill Moseley's like trying to pull these fucking strings while Baby's losing her mind. And then you have like this time frame where it feels like he's losing time, and there's like this like, you know, oh god, if I don't get there soon enough, this isn't gonna be good. But I just have an idea of like, they're all like scrubbing. He's like down, he gets like, the warden throws him into like a prison. This is all from me. This is my mind. I just imagine like Otis says some bullshit and he gets thrown into like a slammer kind of like hole, and then Richard Breaker's down there and he's like scrubbing some shit, and he's just like, yeah, you gotta listen to that warden or else you're gonna be scrubbing dog off of your own fucking teeth, I'll tell you. You know, and he's just like, well, maybe I got myself a bit of a plan to get us out of there. And he's just like,
I guarantee you Alex just lays in bed and like thinks about these rewrites, and he's just like, oh yeah, man, I'm doing it.
I know. And then you have Richard Breaker like sticking out his teeth and everything like that, and it's just like, so what do you say about helping me get out of here? And then you just see him, he's like, I say the police, man.
There's like something Matthew McConaughey right now.
Yeah, well, that's how Richard Breaker talks. He talks like a fucking hillbilly Matthew McConaughey, and he's just like, yeah, let's do it, you know? And I'm just like, yeah, that would be awesome, you know? And then that's his right-hand man, and he's going through it. And then a really fun scene at the end would be if he just like turned him and he's just like, let's get the fuck out of here. And he's like, you know, and just like shoots him. Like, that would be so great. Kind of like if it was his own Igor in a way, you know, I would have liked that more. I mean, and this is all objective. I'm not going to tell Rob Zombie how to do his job, but I am. I'm just like, I like that. But the scenes, like you said, like what we do get with Richard Brake talking to him, with them in the van, I like that moment where like Baby's going to get them the motel, and then like not Sid Haig, sorry, Bill Moseley just turns to him and he goes like, she's wacko, like, you know, he's like,
it's a real sibling dynamic.
Yeah. It's like that, just like that's just what it would feel like. We have another sister, the estranged one, but she's off in the Nova Scotias. But like it'd be like if you and I saw her and then like she's like, I'll go get us a room, and then we all just lay, and I was like, she's lost her mind, you know, like it feels very much like that. I like that Richard Brake's character wants to like go to Hollywood, and then when they go into Mexico and everything, he like sleeps with that whore, and he's like, I'm gonna make you a star. You know, like I love that shit. It's so great, you know. And that's the weird too. It's like Danny Trejo shows up for 5 seconds with Otis in prison, he kills him, and then that's how they escape. And then it's like Danny Trejo's son is the luchador massacre man that comes in, and then like I like that ending as like an action sequence. but
it doesn't compare.
No.
Though.
Oh, it is nothing in
It's-
comparison to the ending of The Devil's Rejects with
Yeah.
William Forsythe's sheriff.
Pretty much the whole Mexico,
It's a whole other movie.
Yeah, and like they could have done so much with it. I feel again if it was two separate movies.
Yeah, you want to talk about like we're just explaining little moments. Three from Hell, that second half of Three from Hell is like really like I like how she's dressed like the Indian. I like the Pablo, the dwarf actor. I like him. I like the weird dude that like rents him the room and how he talks like Boomhauer. He's just like, hang on, man, I'll get some camera down with that.
Ramon, the hell are you doing down there? Take it to the alley.
Beautiful.
Otis sits in the car and he's just like, I'm sorry, I won't get out of there. And he's just like, yeah, I totally understand. Shoots him, and he's like, shoots him like a million times, and he's like, rat. Like gets out. I'm like, that's a great little moment. But it's like, like when we're talking about a movie as a whole. Here,
Yeah.
And as a whole, it's not what I wanted it to be. And on second watch, I was really shocked at how much I was like more and more just like, I really don't, I'm not getting it as much as I first liked it. Even the first half that I thought was stronger than the second half, I was still like,
See, and it's different for me because the second time, or however many times, when I watched it most recently, I appreciated the beginning 100 times more. I don't know if it's because I got older or like what the difference was, or maybe it's because I've seen it a few times, but it's just you really start to notice those little details that really bring you back to like the origin of the whole story.
Oh, it's wonderful to just see new footage with them.
Yes.
Like I was like, this is great. Like I was like, I love this stuff.
Well, because you're really connected to the family after The Devil's Rejects,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Like you connect to them to a whole different level. And then to see them come back, it's super exciting and you start off so good and then it just gets so bad.
Yeah, it's like it loses, just like the Monsters, it's like it almost loses
Memento.
focus and then it kind of goes off in his own thing. And that's why I always said that it would be nice maybe if Rob Zombie every now and then, he doesn't need to listen to it, but like if he just gave the script to another writer to have him do his version, and then he as the producer could then see if there's more, because he's always championed like people coming in giving him ideas. It's just he doesn't want them to enforce them onto his movie.
Absolutely.
And I think having a second opinion is always a great thing. And I
Two
feel
eyes
like,
are better than one, right?
and I really feel like if maybe somebody did have a second opinion on Three from Hell, there would have been that moment where someone said, what if it's all in the prison? And I think that would have led them in a really good path. And then, or like even if the executive said, hey, Rob, like, because I told you that story that like happened. I was watching a Joe Rogan podcast with Rob Zombie that came out like actually 3 years ago to the date of the release of Three from Hell. And he said that like with Three from Hell, what happened is he wanted to explore the Firefly family again because he missed them. So he wrote that script and then he went to Lionsgate and was just like, yeah, what do you guys think about doing another one? And then the executive who was like passed over from, like he was there when they first did The Devil's Rejects, he was like, we haven't had that much fun making a movie since The Devil's Rejects, so let's do it. And he gave him $3 million.
Well, and it is a fun movie.
Yeah, like it's entertaining.
Yeah.
It's not like boring. And I can say that about all of his movies. I was never bored in any of them. I mean, you might think H2 is boring, but I think all of his movies really do have this kind of like visual, like something about them is always visually entertaining.
Well, and I like how it's your typical Rob Zombie. You got the different colored lights in the background, the mirror images of them back and forth.
Yeah.
Like it's all a big trip, right?
Yeah,
and like that, I love that he sticks to that, like it because it's him.
It's
right?
like I was gonna say, one thing I was mentioning is like Rob Zombie is absolutely an auteur filmmaker.
Yeah.
All of his movies feel the same. All of his movies look the same. The only one is the Monsters, but even still, that's
Monsters.
like that's the
Monsters.
With a U, as in you will not like this movie. I feel like I always feel that same connection, even to the point where it's like you could take the Firefly family and put them in as Halloween movies and it wouldn't feel out of place. Like that's kind of crazy when you think about it. And I was like, that's really interesting. I really like that. So with Three from Hell, it's like I do enjoy aspects of it, but I think the biggest reason why I don't like it as much is because just like the Monsters. And I almost put this at the bottom because of how much I enjoyed the first 40 minutes of the Monsters. But it's like the Monsters in the end, it's like they both suffer from the same problem, which it feels like you're going with something and then now a different movie's coming. It's almost like he wrote like 40 pages, stopped and came back and wrote another 40, but it was like a different mindset. And I was like, oh shit, and I'm just like, see, that's the problem. And with Three from Hell, the only reason why it's over the Monsters for me is because there's a little more flair to it that I enjoy. And it's only about like 20 minutes at the end that I don't like. That well, it's not even that I don't like. It just doesn't feel like it connects. Where the monsters, it's like 40 minutes, and you're like, "Ooh, this is a slog," you know. So 3 from Hell, I recommend it. Like I would still watch it. But if you're
a
looking,
fan of the trilogy, like you have to watch it.
Yeah, like you pop it in. But I will say that like you will not feel like they should have came back. In my mind, I would like to think that 3 from Hell, I would have loved it if it ended like with the very ending, because it just stops, right?
Yeah.
I would have loved if the crane shot was going up and you see them walking away, and then it fades to like the ending of Devil's Rejects where they're getting shot a million times, and it's just what they thought would happen if they did escape, and it was all a dream sequence. One of those things that I actually would have championed, because I'm like, well, at least we still have that ending, you know what I mean, to their lives, if this movie did need to exist.
I feel like you just got to commit to it. If you're going to make it, you got to just commit to it.
Yeah, that's Rob, man. That's how he does it. That's you commit to everything. He's got some big kahunas. So, yeah. But yeah, 3 from Hell, number 7, number 8 for me. So...
Question: do you want me to clap or something?
Nope.
Okay, so I know you want to do this in 3 separate.
Yeah. Oh, that's
segments.
just from editing.
Okay.
Like I'll
I wasn't
probably,
sure if you want to be like, and that's it for now.
No. I'll probably just use what you just said right there as the to be continued.
Ba-ba-ba.
Yeah. So.